Okay, so you want to own a trampoline park. It seems like a license to print money. You take a giant empty warehouse, you fill it wall to wall with trampolines, and then you let hundreds of kids bounce around for 20 bucks an hour while their parents buy snacks. It's fun, it's popular, and every weekend the place is absolutely packed with birthday parties. How could that possibly lose money? The answer is, surprisingly easily. Because the trampoline park is one of the most misunderstood businesses in America, and it hides some brutal truths that have already bankrupted a shocking number of the people who tried it. This is a business that looks like pure fun and joy, but underneath, it's something much more serious and much more dangerous. By the end of this video, you'll understand why a trampoline park isn't really a jumping business at all, but secretly an insurance business. You'll understand why the actual money isn't in the jumping. You'll understand how this entire industry inflated into a giant bubble and then violently popped, taking hundreds of businesses down with it. And you'll understand why, despite all of that, it's almost completely immune to being replaced by artificial intelligence. Let's start with the secret that defines everything about this business: the insurance. Here's the uncomfortable reality. When you put hundreds of people, many of them children, in the air on trampolines, they get hurt. A lot. The medical data on this is genuinely startling. Emergency room visits tied to trampoline parks exploded as the park spread, going from just a few hundred a year to many thousands. The injuries aren't just sprained ankles either. We're talking broken bones, dislocations, and in the worst cases, catastrophic neck and spinal injuries, often from people landing wrong in foam pits or colliding with each other. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the main body of children's doctors in this country, actually recommends against recreational trampoline use altogether. Now, think about what that means if you own the park. Every single one of those injuries is a potential lawsuit. And that reality completely reshapes your business because you cannot operate without liability insurance. And for a trampoline park, that insurance is extraordinarily expensive and shockingly hard to get. In fact, it got so bad that many mainstream insurance companies simply refused to cover trampoline parks at all. They looked at the injury statistics and the lawsuit payouts, some of which run into the millions of dollars for a single catastrophic injury, and they walked away. That means park owners are often forced into a specialty corner of the insurance market, paying enormous premiums for coverage. Your insurance bill isn't just another line item. It's one of the biggest costs you have, and it can swing wildly from year to year, entirely outside your control. So when I say a trampoline park is secretly an insurance business, I mean it literally. Managing that risk and that premium is the central challenge of staying alive. And this is why you sign that waiver every time you walk in. You know the one, the long legal document on the tablet that you scroll through and sign without reading before your kid can jump. That waiver is the park's first line of defense. It typically includes language that waives your right to sue and forces any dispute into private arbitration instead of open court, often while also stopping you from joining a class action lawsuit. It's a carefully constructed legal shield, and the fights over whether those waivers actually hold up, especially when the injured person is a child who never agreed to anything, have gone all the way up to state supreme courts. Some courts have thrown them out entirely, ruling that a parent can't sign away their child's right to sue. So the legal ground underneath this business is constantly shifting. Okay, so the insurance is brutal, but surely the jumping itself makes good money, right? Well, here's the second surprise. Not really. The open jump, the general admission ticket that most people buy, is really just the thing that gets bodies through the door. The margins on it get eaten alive by your massive fixed costs. Remember, you are leasing an enormous warehouse, tens of thousands of square feet with very high ceilings, which is expensive. You are staffing it with court monitors. You are paying that crushing insurance bill. And you are constantly replacing trampoline beds and springs, which wear out and must be swapped on a schedule for safety. All of that has to be paid whether 10 people show up or 10,000. So where does the actual profit come from? 3 places, and none of them is the jumping. The first is birthday parties and group events. This is the real engine of a trampoline park. A birthday package bundles a private room, a host, a stack of pizzas, and a group of jumpers into one high-margin sale. Parties are booked in advance, they're predictable, and they're far more profitable than a random walk-in. A park that's great at selling parties makes money. A park that isn't, doesn't. The second is food and drinks. Classic concession stand economics. You're selling pizza, soda, and slushies at a huge markup to hungry kids and tired parents who aren't going anywhere for the next 2 hours. And the third, my personal favorite, is the humble grip sock. Those special non-slip socks that the park requires you to wear and conveniently sells you at the front counter. They cost the park maybe a quarter or 50 cents a pair, and they sell them to you for $5 or $6 every single visit. It sounds trivial, but across hundreds of thousands of visitors a year, at a markup like that, mandatory grip socks quietly become one of the highest margin products in the entire building. Some parks pull in hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on socks alone. The jumping gets you in the door. The socks, the pizza, and the birthday parties are where the business actually lives. But now we get to the biggest lesson of all, and it's a cautionary tale about what happens when everyone rushes into a business that looks like easy money. Because about a decade ago, that's exactly what happened. And there's a nice irony here, because the trampoline itself was invented as a serious athletic tool. Back in the 1930s, a gymnast named George Nissen built the first modern trampoline in a garage, imagining it for acrobats and athletes. For decades, that's mostly what it was. The idea of a giant warehouse full of them, charging the public to bounce, didn't really take off until the mid-2000s. But once it did, and once people saw how packed these places got, a gold rush began. Fueled by franchising and a flood of investment money, trampoline parks exploded across the country. The number of parks went from a mere handful around 2010 to many hundreds within just a few years. Private equity firms poured in, buying up the chains and rolling them together into giant national operators. Everyone wanted in. It looked like a guaranteed hit. And that's exactly the problem. They overbuilt. Too many parks opened too close together, all chasing the same families and the same birthday parties. The market got saturated. And then the very forces we just talked about, the crushing insurance, the high fixed costs, the thin margins, started catching up with everyone. Parks began to fail. Even before the pandemic, there was a wave of closures and bankruptcies rolling through the industry, including some of the big franchise names. The bubble had inflated, and it was popping. And then, in 2020, the pandemic hit. And a business whose entire model is packing crowds of people indoors was, overnight, the worst possible business to be in. Parks were forced to close for months. The largest chain in the country saw its sales roughly cut in half in a single year. More parks went under. It was a brutal shakeout that separated the survivors from the casualties. So the ones who made it through learned to adapt. And this is where the industry is today. The smart survivors stopped being just trampoline parks and became something broader. Adventure parks, or family entertainment centers. They added Ninja Warrior obstacle courses, climbing walls, laser tag, arcades, and go-karts. The logic is simple. Diversify the attractions, spread out the risk, give families more reasons to come and more ways to spend, and don't bet the entire business on trampolines alone. Now, let's ask the question everyone's asking about every business these days. Is a trampoline park about to be taken over by artificial intelligence? And here the answer is a very clear no. A trampoline park might be one of the most AI-proof businesses imaginable. Think about it. The entire product is physical children, jumping their energy out, supervised by human staff for safety. You cannot automate a birthday party. You cannot have a robot supervise a foam pit. In fact, the insurance we talked about basically requires human employees watching the courts at all times. Technology shows up at the edges, the online booking, the digital waiver, the wristband that tracks your spending, but the core experience is gloriously, stubbornly human. Whatever threatens this business, and plenty does, it isn't AI. So let's answer the big question. Should you own a trampoline park? Here's the honest picture. This is not the easy money it appears to be. Just getting in the door is enormously expensive. Building out a proper park, the warehouse, the courts, the attractions, commonly runs somewhere between $2 and $5 million, and often more if you go the franchise route. That's before you've sold a single ticket. You'll pour millions into building it out, sign a massive long-term lease on a giant warehouse, and then face an insurance situation that can genuinely make or break you. It's a business where the fun, family-friendly surface sits directly on top of a serious and constant risk of injury and litigation, and it operates in a market that already proved it can overbuild and collapse. But it's not hopeless. The parks that win are the ones that treat it for what it really is, not a jumping business, but a tightly run events and hospitality business with a serious risk management problem attached. If you are genuinely great at selling birthday parties, if you diversify your attractions so you're not just a one-trick trampoline, if you obsessively manage safety to keep your insurance and your reputation intact, you can absolutely build something profitable and durable. The ones who fail are the ones who thought they were just buying a room full of trampolines. That's the strange truth of the trampoline park. It looks like the most carefree business in the world, a giant room full of bouncing and laughter. But underneath, it's an insurance company wearing a costume, making its real money on pizza and party packages, having already survived a bubble that wiped out its competitors. The jumping was never the business. Managing who gets hurt and who shows up for a party always was. If this changed the way you'll look at the trampoline park at your local strip mall, subscribe. We take apart the economics of one everyday business every week, and the numbers are never what you'd guess. And if you're wondering which everyday business hides the strangest secret of all, I put a couple of my favorites right here on the screen for you. Tap one, and I'll see you inside the next breakdown.